Hi everyone, in this video I am talking about using 3D shapes to help us draw animals and various other things. Um, we are using something that I call shape stacking. I don't know if anyone else calls it that. Um, but it's about using 3D shapes to help us break down an image like I am with these tigers here. And sometimes the 3D shapes stack on top of each other, like the tiger's muzzles against the cube shape of the tiger's head. So that is basically two 3D shapes stacked in front of each other. It can get more complicated. If you imagine you're drawing like a superhero's arm coming towards you in those sort of like POW styles that they do in cartoon comics. If you imagined that, it would be foreshortened. It's not in profile, it's coming at you, so that's what we call foreshortened, and it's quite hard to draw those things. So it's easier to break those organic shapes down into more geometric shapes. So using cylinders or cubes or spheres, they're probably the ones I use the most to break those parts down. So if it was someone's arm coming towards you, you'd break it down into maybe a sphere for the shoulder if you could see it, cylinders for the forearm and the bicep, maybe another few shapes for the hands depending on how the shape that the hand was in, all coming towards you. If you stack those in front of each other, it's much easier to wrap your head around. And then you get to this stage, like I am with the tigers here, where you then start carving into those geometric shapes. So we know tigers don't really have cube heads. um, but it's a good guide. It's a good guide for us. So we now start working into that and carving out the shapes, or adding a bit on to make it more into a tiger or whatever it is that we're drawing. If indeed it's an arm coming towards us, then adding fingers and tendons and muscles, cuts and bruises if there are any, any identifying features for that particular animal that you're putting on. I still tend to like to use larger shapes first, or drawing in shadows, which is what I'm doing here. So you'll see there's a kind of wiggly line that's going up over the tiger's head and nose, and I've just split that off into shadows. So what I've spoken about before with charcoal is, when I'm teaching it, at least I'll use about 4 tones, and I'll call tone 1 the highlight and tone 4 the darkest shadows. So I basically shade in anything that I would think would be a tone 2 or anything I think would be a tone 3 or 4. Basically anything that's shadowy. I'll shade that in with my charcoal, and then I'll brush over it with a brush, as you just saw. And then that turns it into a tone 2 and 3. So then I have to work back into it again to get my tone 4 back, which is what I'm doing here with the tiger's mouth and chin. I'm going back over wherever I think there are some really dark shadows, and putting in the darkest shadows again. Now you can vary the tones more than just 4 tones by varying the pressure in your charcoal, and that is really just something that comes with practice. The more you do it, the better understanding you'll have of your materials and how far you can push them. Also, different brands of charcoal and different brands of paper all affect these things. And actually, on this particular piece, I am using hot pressed watercolor paper. It wasn't a very high GSM. I can't remember what it was exactly. I think it was about 185 or something like that. Not very, very heavy. But it was still really lovely paper for the charcoal, I found. And it was smooth enough to be able to move the charcoal around quite nicely. So that worked quite well. Anyway, here I am still adding in all the dark areas. This will take a while, and really thinking about just trying to draw the shadows is often much easier than drawing all the features. So in a previous lesson, I talked about more about drawing shadows in. This one's more about using shapes particularly 3D shapes. And I find that you use 3D shapes more when your image is foreshortened. So your subject is foreshortened. So if it's in profile, you could probably get away with using mainly 2D shapes. But when it's at a 3/4 pose like these tigers are, excuse me, then you'd want to consider more of using 3D shapes. It's much easier. So here we go, putting in all the stripes. They're suddenly starting to look more like tigers, less like bears, more like tigers. And here's the image all finished. And just to remind you, this is what we did. We split our images up into 3D shapes like this. Put those 3D images onto paper, much easier doing that than trying to draw a whole tiger. There it was, all black and white. And then we added colour. This was just watercolour. After I had fixed it with fixative, I added watercolour. Thank you.